morning and welcome to the Mayor's Table. This is a special edition of the Mayor's Table. We're actually going to call it the City Manager's Table today because today, on a special occasion today and next week, I'm going to have the opportunity to interview our outgoing mayor, Mayor Roberts. Mayor, your term ends on March 12th. That's coming up pretty quick.
Not many days left, and it's bittersweet in many ways for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss the responsibilities that go with the office of mayor, and I'm going to miss the people, many of whom have become good friends as well as professional colleagues. But on the other hand, I'll look forward to some new challenges. I don't know what they are at this point, but it's going to be an opportunity for Cindy and me to do a little bit more traveling without the restrictions that have been there for the last 8 years. Clearly have 2 kids who live distance away from Farmington, and we want to take more opportunities to see them. So it's bittersweet.
Yeah, well, we've done 108 episodes of the Mayor's Table. Vast majority of those we've done together, and you've gotten to interview me. And we thought, as we were trying to think about how to wrap up the last couple editions of the Mayor's Table with you, that I asked if I could interview you. And the reason I wanted to do that is I really want to spend some time with our viewers really reminiscing about the last 8 years and the extraordinary and significant accomplishments that have gone on. And I knew if I needed to interview you because I need to set this up where I can get you to talk a little bit about these accomplishments, because you're not one that likes to take credit and you're embarrassed by that. And I know you fully recognize that everything that we've accomplished is a team effort. Certainly, administrative staff and the other elected officials have certainly had a huge part. But the fact of the matter is you have been the mayor, and you have been the key leader that has, in many cases, really stepped up and provided that leadership that's pushed some of these things over the finish line. So,
well, I appreciate that, but I also recognize that the key players in everything that's done in providing the services to our citizens that we provide are the key administrators and the employees of the city. The elected officials definitely play a role. There's a political role to play. That's why we have an elected body.
yeah.
But without the leadership and the guidance of people like you and the department heads we have, and the employees who actually are on the ground making sure that those services are provided effectively and efficiently, we're in worse shape, and so we rely heavily on the skills that our administrators have. And I just want to say that in my 8 years, I've really enjoyed working with our administrative leadership, and it's made my job much easier to have very effective, competent people in those jobs.
Well, I appreciate that, and I certainly echo the appreciation for all of our frontline employees and what they do day in and day out, and of course our other elected officials. But nevertheless, you agreed to let me interview you regarding some of these accomplishments that I really think our viewers will enjoy remembering back on. When I think about you first coming to office, one of my earliest remembrances of you coming in was you kicking your wife off of one of our boards and commissions. As our viewers may know, we have many volunteer commission boards that serve as advisory to the city council and the staff. And you came in, there was probably 50 or 60 vacancies, and I remember you kind of came in and shook things up a bit. What was that all about?
I probably had 50 or 60 vacancies existing at the time I assumed the position of mayor, and then I created a few more. You alluded to the fact that I took the position that if somebody had been serving for 12 to 14 years, then it was time for that person to give way to some new ideas, new ears and eyes on the issues. And my wife was one of the very first casualties. In fact, she was the first casualty. I felt that I really couldn't move in that direction unless I was willing to impose that process on my own family. So that's something that she reminds me of fairly frequently. But before I became mayor, I believe the process for making appointments to boards and commissions was just simply the mayor took a look at the people he knew in the community, and he went out and he solicited participation. So it was generally a process where the mayor was calling on acquaintances, friends, to volunteer to serve on these advisory boards and commissions. I thought that process could be improved upon. First of all, it's an extremely difficult job if you have to go out and identify potential volunteers and then contact them and try to lobby them to get involved. I thought that we might find that there are a lot of people out there who are interested in volunteering and being of service to their community if they just knew the opportunities were there. And so the idea was just simply to put out the notification that we're looking for people who might be interested in serving on these boards and commissions, and to open up the process by application, and then to interview those people, and then to make the selections and to recommend appointments for confirmation to the city council. So I would imagine in the first year of my time as mayor, I went through that process probably 90 times. As I say, there were probably 50 or 60 vacancies waiting for me to be filled.
I remember you having many interviews with citizens that would come in and meet with you.
So we began to accept the applications, and I was surprised that we got a lot of applications, many more than there were positions open. And many people I did not know. I had never met them, didn't know of them in any way. So the benefit of it was that we opened up the process. We gave opportunity to people in the community who might not otherwise have been given that opportunity. I met a lot of people who I had not ever met before, and realized, I wasn't surprised by it, but realized that there are a lot of people out there who have something very valuable to contribute, their experience, their knowledge, and their willingness to serve. And that's what we ask of for these people who serve on these boards and commissions. And so, everyone who applied, I scheduled an interview with them, and I can tell you those interviews don't last just 10 minutes. Maybe I have a desire to communicate and talk with people and learn a little bit about them, but those would generally last 30 to 45 minutes each.
Yeah. Well, that was great. I also recall an emphasis there, but whether it was intentional or just a good byproduct of that was you brought in a lot of younger people, and we began to see some generational shifts of seeing younger people join these boards and commissions and preparing to take the mantle of future leadership in our community.
I think it's incumbent on my generation of elected officials to kind of pave a path for the next generation to become involved. There's no better way to do that than through these voluntary boards and commissions. Yeah. And so I have made an effort to reach out to that younger generation, those in their 30s, even their mid-20s to upper 20s, 30s and 40s, those I would consider the next generation down, and those whom we need to cultivate to assume these elected positions and provide the leadership that we need going forward. So that was a point of emphasis for me, and just an element of the outreach that I felt strongly about.
Along those same lines, we as a city, 8 years ago was a long time ago technologically for us, but we had already begun to take good strides towards being more transparent and making more documents and things easier to be available to our citizens. But you came in, I remember, with also a very strong emphasis on transparency and wanting to put some accountability behind that to staff and giving us lists of things that you wanted to see out on our webpage and things that were there. You talk a little bit about that value of transparency and openness in government?
Well, the basis for those ideas was my feeling, based on my observation about government, and this is government at the national level and the state level primarily, is that I, along with a lot of other people, were growing discontented with government and the party system, the dogmatic positions that are generated out of the two-party system. And we were just kind of frustrated about government, skeptical about it, cynical about it. And so I thought, what could we do at the local level where maybe that level of cynicism and skepticism hadn't invaded too deeply? What could we do to reach out to people in our community to demonstrate that there's reason to be proud of local government, there's reason for them to be engaged in local government? And so my thought was always thinking about what it is we could do to improve that image of local government. Transparency is the one way to really make inroads in that area. So, I would generally think about how could we do something differently that would give the public, give the citizens of our community an opportunity to be involved and engaged. The administrative process was one of those ways. We went to public budget hearings, held in that very first year, we held 2 public budget hearings. I don't think that had ever been done before. Of course, our council meetings are public meetings, but we'd never really gone out and reached out into the community.
Specifically to try to get input on the budget process.
And we were doing that at a time when, obviously, when we had just, we were on the outset of what has continued to be a very economic challenging times, when GRT revenue at the city of Farmington had dropped by 22% in that fiscal year 2009 period. So, everything that has happened in this approach to outreach, transparency, is against that background of a very challenging economic time.
Yeah. Well, I remember related to that, and maybe you've forgotten, but you remember implementing the Citizens Academy, where we brought in people to learn about all the aspects of the organization and go visit out in the field. And another area you began talking about pretty early, that only took us 8 years, maybe 7.5 years to get it done, was, you know what I'm talking about?
I did.
The broadcasting our council meetings.
Yeah, live streaming our council meetings. I'm glad we got that done during my time. And sometimes things take a little longer than people would expect in the private sector. They take longer in the public sector. But I'm proud of the fact that we've gotten that done, and I think it's another effort at transparency, openness, outreach to our community. And I'm hoping that some of these things have produced the result that I was hopeful for, and that is less cynicism, less skepticism about our government, maybe an opportunity to realize that people who get engaged in local government, either as professional employees or as elected officials, they really do care about the well-being of our community. I don't know many people who I've met in elected office who have sought that position out of any self-interest. It really can't be that to be very effective, and that's a very shallow approach, and I think people see right through that. I think people can detect when somebody's sincere about their approach to doing a job or doing some kind of a project or providing a service, and I'm hopeful that came across with our efforts in transparency. I think some of the other outreach that I tried to focus on was creating the Minority Issues Roundtable Discussion Forum. And that was born out of my thought that there are many people in our community who feel disenfranchised and feel they've never had an opportunity to be engaged in the political process or the governing process. And generally they are minority group interests. And so I thought, how can we deal with that issue? And the idea came, well, why don't we just create an informal discussion venue? We'll kind of create an open invitation environment there. We'll target some representatives of minority interest groups in our community, but we'll let it grow as demand might increase for that kind of venue. And it turned out that for the last 7 years, every other month, we've had a luncheon meeting with anywhere from 8 to 15 people who are generally representing minority interest groups. And it's just been an informal discussion where they have an opportunity to meet with the mayor of the community, talk about any issues that they see that may exist in the community, and just have a dialogue. And each of those times we met, we'd have a formal program that might deal with some aspect that would be of interest to minority interest groups in our community: policing, economic development, housing. We probably had at least 40 of these discussion forums over that 7-year period of time. So we had a lot of different subject matter. And I found that people really appreciated just the small gesture of an invitation to be included. Yeah. People didn't attend every time, but a lot of people attended regularly, and they might miss 2 or 3 meetings, but they'd come back. And as we had the last one of those in January, got a lot of positive feedback, and a hope that that kind of forum or something similar to it would be continued into the future.
Yeah. Well, on that idea of engaging the public, let's not forget the establishment of the mayor's table. This program right here, when you first brought that up 100 and 9 episodes ago, I was skeptical as to what kind of penetration we would have, and I think it's exceeded both of our expectations in terms of hundreds, in many cases thousands of views on the Mayor's Table. So I really commend you for that. It's given us an opportunity to take our message directly to the people, so I appreciate that personally.
Well, we tried some other things that I think were successful, but the outreach was limited in scope. You mentioned the Citizens Academy, and we did 2 of those academies, and in each one there were 15 people. So the 6-week program, you reach 15 people, total of 30 people in the 2 academies that we conducted. I enjoyed them, and I think the people who participated in them enjoyed them and learned from them. But we didn't reach out to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And then we tried these town hall meetings, that concept, and you'd get more staff people there than citizens, but we might get 10 citizens. I think we did 3 of those, and I finally realized that those were probably not productive. And then as I began to try to think of some other way to reach out and hit more people, I'm not engaged heavily in social media, but I do realize the power of social media. And so this idea was one that I thought is worth trying. Didn't have any idea what the outreach would be or the reach would be. I thought if we had 100 people viewing a segment, that would be great. That'd be outstanding. As it turns out, we've had much bigger numbers. I think we've been told that the analytics indicate that we're getting 1,500 to 2,100 to 2,500 views per segment. So that's hard to beat.
Yeah, and in some cases many more when there's something particularly timely. Well, in this first part of our special episodes, we were focusing on kind of these outreach initiatives, and the fact is we covered half of the significant things that we jotted down in preparation for this segment, but we are running out of time. Is there any last comments you want to add to this discussion today?
No, I just think that, again, some of these ideas may have been ideas that I put out there, but the success of their implementation to the degree they have been successful, I give credit in large part to other people. I give credit to you for embracing these kinds of ideas. The budget process, the public budget process, is something that has been successful because of your efforts and your ability to communicate with people. So there are a lot of people who have been very integral and essential in putting some of these ideas into place, and I appreciate that very much.
Well, class act to the end. So next week in part 2, we'll focus on projects, brick and mortar things that we've accomplished in the last 8 years as our large team and things that you've led. So
I'll look forward to it.
Well, thank you for joining us for this special edition of the Mayor's Table. We look forward to seeing you next week.